It has been 10 days since the Tunisian president dismissed the head of government, froze the parliament, and stripped the MPs of their parliamentary immunity. The actions of the president took place following nationwide protests over the government mishandling of the COVID crisis and the politicians' and political parties' widespread corruption and malpractices. Now, Qais Said acted on Article 80 of the Constitution. The article gives him temporary exceptional powers in times of crisis, a decision that was celebrated by many Tunisians across the country. However, the political opponents of the president, mainly the Islamist Ennahda party, described the move as a coup. So what is really happening in Tunisia? The first spark of the Arab Spring was ignited in Tunisia when large protests toppled the dictator. The success of the Tunisian revolution inspired the whole region and generated a series of unprecedented political changes in North Africa and the Middle East. 10 years after the Arab Spring, the Tunisians have already written a new constitution and organized 3 free general elections. However, the socio-economic troubles in Tunisia only worsened. The citizens were unable to hold any party or government to account. Indeed, the 10 governments that ruled Tunisia over a decade were formed through coalitions between different parties. Now, the fact that Tunisia had a new government every year is a significant sign of political instability. But this is not the whole picture. Tunisia also witnessed a handful of terrorist attacks and 2 political assassinations. We have seen many headlines about Tunisia almost everywhere. A coup, a grab of power, political turmoil, struggling democracy, and maybe Tunisians never wanted democracy. It is very important to mention that some of these headlines are misleading. But it is also important to ask where this information comes from. The leader of Ennahda party and his family managed to expand their network over the 20 years of exile in the UK. He and his family members, who also happen to be the spokespeople of his party internationally, have easier access to international media. Sumaya and Intisar Ghannouchi, also known as Intisar and Sumaya Khriji, the daughters of Rashid al-Ghannouchi, are writers for the Middle East Eye. The Middle East Eye was the first British media outlet that labeled what is happening in Tunisia as a coup. The Middle East Eye even reported that the Tunisian head of government was beaten up in the presidential palace and refused to take down the article or apologize, even when Mishishi himself dismissed the story. On the BBC, the spokeswoman of Ennahda party is Yusra al-Ghannouchi, another daughter of Rashid al-Ghannouchi. And on Al Jazeera English, Saida Ounisi, who is known for being close to the leader of her party, is representing the Tunisian parliament. Speaking of that, Ghannouchi has been accused of nepotism since 2011 when his son-in-law Rafiq Bouchleka was appointed as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Many questioned the qualifications of the new minister when he gave a statement suggesting that Istanbul was the capital of Turkey. He was also accused of misuse of public funds for charging expensive rooms in the Sheraton Hotel to the ministry account. Inside the Ennahda party, Ghannouchi's son Muad is known for being the second in command in the party. He accompanied his father to the Davos summit in 2012. Ennahda party members are accused of having a surprising level of wealth that was unexplained and unaccounted for. And generally speaking, in Tunisia, corrupt businessmen and terrorist sympathizers tend to run for parliament in order to gain the protection of parliamentary immunity. Given that the immunity is lifted, many MPs are facing prosecution after many years of impunity. Some of them are accused of money laundering, terrorism, and sexual harassment. The Western media relied on its limited and biased sources of information to report on Tunisia. The New York Times published an opinion article supposedly written by the President of the Parliament, Rashid al-Ghannouchi. The article is entitled, "My country has been a dictatorship before, we can't go back." However, Ghannouchi has been his party's leader for 40 years. When the popularity of the leader decreased, Ennahda party postponed its 11th Congress until further notice. Ghannouchi, however, continued to rule despite not being re-elected. In fact, when he came back from exile in 2011, he promised not to run for office. Obviously, he broke his word when he became the president of the Tunisian parliament in 2019. Under the leadership of Rashid al-Ghannouchi, the parliament was in turmoil. The female opposition leader of Dasturi al-Hur was physically assaulted inside the parliament on several occasions. However, the aggressors were not held to account by the parliament secretariat. Morsi constantly accused the Ennahda party of terrorism and corruption. Other political opponents of Ennahda also accused the party of political assassinations and sending thousands of young impoverished Tunisians to conflict area to fight for ISIS. Some of the Western journalists and think tank experts concluded easily that what is happening in Tunisia is a coup. And some even jumped to recommending US and European leverage, sanctions and withholding of COVID-19 vaccine donations. If these recommendations were taken seriously, Tunisians would be collectively punished. In the midst of the Western media coverages and think tank analysis, the real debate around the Tunisian president decisions played out freely, I must add, on Tunisian media and social media is being ignored. Many experts tend to analyze the Tunisian crisis through the Egyptian paradigm when the Tunisian reality is so different from the Egyptian one. I wonder why these same experts did not notice the striking similarities between the Tunisian Second Republic and the French Fourth Republic, for example. The French Fourth Republic was a parliamentary one. It witnessed over 12 governments in 11 years, and it nearly led France to civil war. The Second World War hero, Charles de Gaulle, requested exceptional powers to craft a new constitution. The French people voted yes for the referendum that made France a presidential democracy. So what if what is happening in Tunisia is not a coup after all? Maybe it is just an attempt to create a Tunisian Third Republic.